and strategies to navigate that. Um, okay, so we will go ahead and introduce our panel here. So, like I said, I'm Meredith Gleason. I am a group practice owner of Empowered Child Learning. We're mainly a group practice of psychologists, speech and language pathologists, educational tutor, and we provide counseling, diagnostic testing, and social groups, speech and language therapy, parent coaching, and other types of services to our community, including IEE assessments. We have an office in Murrieta, and we also have an office in San Diego.
Awesome. I'm Crystal Sanford. I'm the owner and lead consultant at the Sanford Autism Advocacy Group, and we do everything around autism and IEPs. So we guide parents through the IEP journey, empowering them so their kiddos get the education they deserve. We'll support families who have autistic children or children anywhere on the neurodivergent way of thinking and that they receive IEP services. So we do uh, coaching, we attend IEP meetings with families, we teach conferences and all the things about autism and IEPs.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lindsay Wood. I'm a pediatric occupational therapist and owner of Eat, Play, Love OT. We support neurodivergent kids as well as kids with developmental delays, participate in daily activities. We help kids with motor skills, sensory processing, social, emotional, and behavioral, and self-help skills. And we are mobile. We are located in San Diego and also in Temecula.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jennifer Hunter, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Learning Project. I provide support for families on the academic side and educational experiences. And so, really harnessing what our students' strengths are, whether they're neurodivergent or just a regular kid who is having challenges at school and with their learning. I can support with educational tutoring, with science based education, and with parent coaching, student coaching, and advocacy across the IEP spectrum.
Thank you to our providers for introducing themselves. We will have contact information and ways to follow up with us in the presentation. So stay tuned if you need information on how to get a hold of us. It's just some group norms. If you are in the webinar, please mute. We are encouraging you to put questions in the chat. We are going to have a Q&A after each presenter, so you can ask that specific provider information about their strategies or what they presented. And then we will have the recording and some resources sent out after today's webinar so you can follow up and receive access to the recording to review or take notes of anything you want to carry over into your holiday routines. So our goals for today are helping you understand your child's emotional experience during the holiday season, giving you practical, simple tips you can use right away and anywhere and adapt to wherever the setting is that you need support in. Also focusing on strengths and building confidence in your not only your child, but you as a family unit to be able to solve problems collaboratively while recognizing and honoring your child's neurodivergency and unique strengths. And then we want to, of course, provide ways you can help your child stay regulated, access sensory supports, communicate their needs, and then looking ahead and transitioning back to their academic setting post winter break with some academic tools in mind. So, up first, we're going to have Crystal talk about the very important aspects of communication support during the holidays.
Awesome. Thank you, Meredith. So I am honored to be able to share with everyone today around this topic of communication support for the holidays. We'll go to the next slide. So, as we all know, we are in the midst of the holiday season, be it Hanukkah, which just started a few days ago, and Christmas and Kwanzaa and activities and snowman and all the things that this time of the year brings. And with the holidays, there is fun, there is so much to do, but that also brings a lot of communication demands. And I do want to preface this with the idea that I'm a speech pathologist. I've practiced now for over 25 years within the school environment, mostly private practice, a little bit as well. Now I just do speech IEEs, and so I'm on the assessment end. But I'm also the parent of two neurodivergent kiddos. My oldest is on the autism spectrum, and she's 15. So I am sharing from my lens of both being a professional as an NSLP, but also as a parent. So I understand as well that there are many communication demands when it comes to this holiday season. New communication partners and maybe new people that your child is having to interact with at these different events, or if you're visiting and traveling to see new family members, or if extended family is coming to visit you. These may be new people that your child needs to understand how to communicate with, new communication environments with all of the different activities, different people's homes, potentially different things, even within the school environment that they've had to interact with, and less familiar communication partners who your child is not as familiar with communicating with. Maybe they don't understand that person's communication style or nuances, and vice versa. There also may need to be a faster response time as a result, because there's a lot of hustle and bustle and movement from different activities, or again, different people with different demands, or maybe multiple communication demands, or multiple demands on your child's system at one time. Maybe you're at a holiday party, there's a lot of food, there's smells, there's a lot of sensory input that your child is having to navigate. And then on top of that, people are asking them questions. So now there is the social and the language component. And so that's a lot. It's a lot for our kiddos to be able to navigate during this time. Next slide. And children with communication differences as a result of this may experience frustration, maybe not being able to get their ideas across, maybe as easily as they are used to, which can be frustrating for anyone. Confusion, maybe new and unfamiliar, as we said, maybe even words, maybe context. They're exposed maybe to some new things that they're seeing or hearing or feeling and smelling, and they don't maybe have a word for that. They don't have a context for that. Especially for our younger kiddos, different communication styles that may be confusing. Potentially, maybe they're meeting an extended family member who talks fast, who demands eye contact. All the things that a child could experience could be confusing. Indecision, so many choices, right? Do you want, what color cookie do you want? Maybe there's a cookie decorating thing. What color do you want? What kind? Do you want sprinkles or not? Like, wow, there's a lot of things to have to choose from during this holiday season, and that indecision in and of itself can be frustrating. Different play partners, who do you choose to interact with? And as parents, as caregivers, we may be experiencing some things as well, because we have children who have a different communication style. That idea of the comparison, at the family events, when your sibling or your whoever has a child that's your age, and why is your child having struggles and not this person's child? And you may feel that internally, it could be voiced externally. And so these are definitely some of the challenges that we all may be experiencing during this time of the year. So ways to help. We know what can be occurring because of this time of the year, that all the differences. What can we do to help? Well, for our children, especially those who are minimally speaking, I don't use the word nonverbal. A lot of our kiddos who may not have words, they may have sounds. They're not completely nonverbal, depending on the kiddo, but they may be minimally speaking, not using words primarily as their communication tool. Maybe they are ones who use an AAC, an augmentative communication device, or gesture, or signs. Whatever that communication mode is, always make sure your child has consistent access to that, consistent access to their voice. you may be parenting a child who's neurodivergent and who communicates verbally, but in the midst of hustle, bustle, different environments, sensory overload, they may not have access to the communication that they normally would. They may not be able to communicate with someone in a full sentence if they are beginning to experience some dysregulation. And so, giving your child access to tools, maybe if you have a child who typically is verbal, but maybe experiences some anxiety, you and your child create maybe a type of a code that if your child gives you a thumbs up or uses a certain sign and they're out at this Christmas party, that's your sign between you and them that they need to take a break. And then that gives them immediate access to be able to communicate that to you and take that break. And if you have a child that uses a communication device, make sure that you have it and that you take it with them if it is at school and you bring it home during the holidays with the charger and everything that that includes. Maybe even if it's pictures that the teacher is using and has used during this holiday season, you can ask the teacher for a copy of those so that you can use those same ones. Again, giving your child access to be able to communicate in the way that works best for them. Practice and rehearsals are really important. If you know of events that will be coming up, what would it look like if your child was able to practice that with you? Maybe they were able to see pictures of these people that they're going to interact with and that are extended family members that they only see once a year. Maybe they've never met. Or you could take a virtual tour of a place that you're going to be visiting if you're going to go maybe see, the Nutcracker or the Grinch or wherever you may be going in the community. Any way to practice and rehearse both what will be happening in that place as well as, what the venue looks like and as well as what kind of language will be going on there. Those things can be super powerful for our neurodivergent kiddos. Offering narrow choices is also super helpful. Again, so many things to consider. What if your child just had two choices, right? Do you want the red or the blue? Do you want it this now or do you want it later? Really narrowing that down can help to decrease the overwhelm. And then lastly, having conversations with friends and family. Being upfront. I'm really a big proponent of talking about the elephant in the room as soon or prior to the elephant getting there. And so maybe you're having conversations with, grandma and grandpa or great grandma and great grandpa. My kiddo is coming. This is what they're working on. This is what's so amazing about them. These are their strengths. Talk to them about these things or have these toys available. These are the things that are going to bring joy and are of interest to my child. And these could be ways that could open up the door to communication. Any strategies, communication tools, anything that is working for you and your child, feel free to share that with your family members or anyone who will be interacting with your child. And that'll help to ease potentially that interaction. Again, with the consistent access to their voice, just some tips here as we shared. If the child has AAC, making sure that you have that tool available with you. If there are some certain things that your child will be engaging with, maybe asking, or if you know how to, adding those icons on the device so you have them available. Asking the teacher for a refresher so that you're prepared to support your child with that during the holiday season. Adding in that key vocabulary and practicing using different signs or gestures or, apps or whatever it might be that could support your child in communication. Practice and rehearsal, very important, can help to reduce anxiety and the overwhelm. Understanding maybe there's, different terms that may be used that are unique to this time of the year. Practicing what it would look like to ask someone for something at this holiday party, or what you might say if you're going to meet Santa and take a holiday photo or something of that nature. So again, being prepared. Social stories can be helpful, role play, anything to give your child a heads up. Offering those narrow choices, especially in these new and stressful potentially situations. They may not, again, have access to their words or their words in a way that they typically do. finding maybe, like we said, social stories. Some might find that these choices are super overwhelming, and so narrowing that down as much as possible can be helpful. And then having those conversations with your extended family, or with the Santa ahead of time, or looking for opportunities that are more sensory friendly. That's always helpful as well. Letting people know about your child's interests and preferences, because that's a game changer. If a new person that they have to interact with knows that they like Bluey and they talk about Bluey, wow, that could just really open up a door for a beautiful communication moment for them and for your child. So with a little preparation and patience, you can definitely set your child up for success when it comes to communication during the holiday season. Hope that's been helpful. Oh, this is our information here. Again, we offer a variety of supports at our company, advocacy work, as well as IEP conferences, other resources, community partnerships. We do training, anything around autism and neurodiversity. Schools may be wanting resources and training. We offer that as well. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram. You can also, you'll have a link later to schedule a free 15-minute consultation if you need some help with autism or IEPs. Thanks so much.
Okay, great. Thank you, Crystal. So I will be presenting our next section. Oops. Called Supporting Emotional Regulation During the Holidays. So I'm Meredith Gleason from Empower Child Learning. I was a psychologist in the schools for about 10 years and a teacher for a few years before that. So I've been in the field of education almost 20 years. Similar to Crystal, I have a neurodivergent child. My son has ADHD. I have ADHD. So we live that neurodivergent life together. And so I know personally and professionally that the holidays can create this emotional load that we carry, and it's very easy to become fatigued. And, there's a lot of reasons why that it's challenging for not just, kids in general, but neurodivergent children and families. So we're doing things outside of our routine. Routines are structured. So when we have something structured, like a set schedule, and we're doing something that is out of the routine and unstructured, meaning might not have those rules front loaded or visible or made more clear ahead of time, that can really throw off children and families trying to navigate what to expect. So similar to what Crystal said, if a child's never been through See Santa before, we want to role play what that might look like, what might be the social expectations that might be expected but not visible or obvious. And then we also want to consider, when we're doing something outside of a routine, the sensory and social demands that come up. So, we have a lot of times children that are neurodivergent have the sensitivity sensory wise, where they can feel overwhelmed visually, auditory, tactile. They can be overwhelmed by even a certain smell. Sounds can be tricky. So we want to make sure we're providing them the opportunity to know what to expect and then how to adjust as needed. And then the same thing socially, as Crystal spoke to. A lot of times we are coming in to holidays not at our best selves. So basic needs are sometimes not met. And sometimes that happens with like fatigue, being overscheduled. We're tired, hungry, hot, cold. Travel can wear us down, and then, or we're just overstimulated in general. And so that leads us to having more of a difficulty with emotional regulation. And then there's this pressure to act festive, right? To enjoy these holiday moments, even when we really may not. And so we'll talk a little bit about co-regulation later in the slides, but that's a super important feature of emotional regulation, as well as also being okay with this didn't work out. It looked different than I thought. and we changed our plan, and that's okay, being accepting of that. One of the things I say a lot of times is, kids aren't giving you a hard time, they're having a hard time. So kids behave if they can. A famous psychologist, Ross Greene, said, children behave if they can because it's so much easier. So when they're not and they're emotionally dysregulated, it's because they're communicating to you that they need help. So there's some things we can do before we go into holiday situations where there might be emotional dysregulation. So helping your child be ready and aware of their feelings and their reactions is really important. So um, a lot of times in our counseling sessions, we incorporate something called cognitive behavior therapy, which is recognizing feelings, thoughts, and actions and how they're all connected. So sometimes we have these hot thoughts. So some holiday hot thoughts that your child or you might be having about a holiday event or routine might be this is too much. Maybe you are taking your child to go to a tree lighting and there's lots of people around. It's very busy, it's crowded. That sensory overload is there. Your child might be feeling that way. If there's a performance or an expectation, like sitting on Santa's lap and being able to smile and tell him what you want for Christmas, or if you are attending a religious experience and there's a participation required of your child or a play, they may feel like everyone is watching them and there's this pressure to do things a certain way. And certain expectations they may have for themselves to also be perfect, right? We put a lot of pressure on ourselves and our children to do things to a certain level. So naming thoughts and feelings does reduce that anxiety. And then we also can reframe what that looks like. So if we are recognizing, first spotting the thoughts, right? Knowing what they are, what kind of trigger might have happened, what situation is making my child more dysregulated. And then also reframing, it's okay if someone's overwhelmed. It's okay if someone's needs a break or needs to leave an activity, or we need to change our plan. So we don't want to shame our children for their feelings. All feelings are okay. It's how we share and respond, that really helps our children know what is safe or what might be unsafe to show our feelings. So it's okay to acknowledge this is overwhelming. Empathize and honor that they're feeling this way. Offer things where they can reset. There's different reset rituals you can put in place with your child and practice before you go into a situation. And then also having small, predictable activities embedded within a unstructured activity can really help. So if there's like a certain fidget that your child likes to use, and that's a good transition activity, having them use that maybe when they're waiting in line for a holiday activity that can help. Having access to things like if they need noise canceling headphones or certain repetitive or predictable activities that they can do. Sometimes, like my family and I, we play I Spy when we're waiting because that's a really familiar activity that both my kids enjoy, and it kind of takes that awareness away from things that might be overstimulating or frustrating happening around. Also, practicing identifying feelings early. So, if we are noticing our child might be having those hot thoughts, we want to also encourage them, like, how does that feel in your body? So, there in our practice, we incorporate elements of mindfulness and the brain body connection because a lot of times our body is telling us before our brain even recognizes we're having an emotional feeling and reaction. There's a famous book on trauma called The Body Keeps the Score. And that's because our body reacts to situations before our brain is even aware. And so there is that level between the 0 to 60 or 0 to 100 miles an hour that we see in our kids. We have to help them catch it, and we can be their coach and encouraging them to notice what's going on inside. Is your chest feeling tight? Is your heart beating fast? Are you breathing really shallow, quick breaths? And so your body is getting that signal, I'm not okay. Are your fists clenched? Are you withdrawing from the situation? Are you kind of tucked inside? And then helping them notice. And usually they can notice when they are in a more calm state. So it's good to practice this. And then when they're experiencing a certain emotion, like if I know um, my son might withdraw when he's overwhelmed. Well, then when I see him start to churn inward, I'm going to ask him, do you seem overwhelmed? Do you want to take a break? Or I might say, do you feel your body? Do you notice your body turning in? Or I might say, I've observed or I noticed that you're doing X, Y, and Z. Are you feeling this way? To help them make that connection. And then teaching simple scripts can really help. When our children are dysregulated, like Crystal said, there's not always access for a complete sentence, full language. And it depends on your child's mode of communication too. So you may be using an AAC device for using I feel because, or you may be helping your child use a visual to point to a feelings chart of how they're feeling, or like a feelings thermometer, kind of like what's seen here on the screen, or just teaching them what they need to ask for. And it's also totally okay, like Crystal said, to have a visual or signal or code to use in place of language. Because when our brains and our body are in fight, flight, or freeze, that's what happens when we feel threatened and our sensory system's overloaded, then we are typically not able to access the logical part of our brain and ask for things in a calm, rational way. Sometimes we need alternative ways to do that. So practicing those I feel statements and self-advocacy is very important. Sometimes children need to be told or almost given permission to share their feelings and ask for what they need. Sometimes, especially kids with anxiety, they don't want to disappoint. And so sometimes they will hold their feelings inside and then it boils over like a volcano, right? It eventually erupts. And so then we need to regroup. So it's okay for them. We want them to say these I feel statements and ask for what they need before they get to that eruption point. And then one of the most important things, but also I find the most challenging as a parent, is the co-regulation. There's the notion when you're on a plane, you have to put your oxygen mask on first before your child's. That applies everywhere. You have to be regulated before you can expect your child to be regulated. So calm creates calm. We need to, when we see our child start to show those escalation signs, we need to soften our tone, use less words. We need to encourage them to mirror our breathing, where we're breathing in slow, hold and out slow, modeling that for them, even putting our hand on our belly and drawing attention to it. Like I'm going to do some deep breathing and modeling, encouraging them to join or just modeling it. Sometimes kids don't want to be told what to do in those situations. Um, or if you have a strategy, like I know a common one is like breathing in the hot cocoa, smelling it. Oh, it smells so good. And sometimes I'll ask things like, oh, does yours have marshmallows or whipped cream on there, right? To get creative and distract a little bit. Oh, it's so hot. We got to blow on it. So those kind of strategies can really help. And then labeling too. I noticed that you're stomping your foot, your voice is getting higher. Are you frustrated? So acknowledging. And we want to encourage that we're doing this co-regulation with our kids. We're not expecting them to do it alone. So we're here, we're not leaving, we're not shaming, we're accepting, and we're providing support. And sometimes this means before we go into a triggering setting, we need to take time for ourselves. So sometimes if I know I'm going to go into a setting where I'm going to be helping my children regulate, I might take 15 minutes before to have some self-care, whether that's popping outside for a quick walk or doing, reading a book, listening to some music, doing something where I'm getting my cup filled so I have that regulation to pour from. And then sometimes when, we're in those moments, there are things that are sometimes out of our control or things we didn't anticipate, and an escalation of behavior or emotional dysregulation happens. And that's okay. We're learning. Our children, as neurodivergent humans, are learning. So sometimes pausing and taking a minute can really help. And just checking in, like, have they had a long day? Are they overtired? Do they need a snack? Are they dehydrated? Are they hot? Are they cold? Let's think and just take a minute to check in with our body and our brain to see what's going on. Sometimes I have families even practice a body scan, which is like starting at the top of your head, feeling like your hair, your ears, just your jaw, is your neck tight? Do you need to loosen it up? Do we need to roll our shoulders, and going through our body and relaxing different parts? Sometimes that is a very effective way of checking in. And then lowering the demands. So if the expectation is to walk through a holiday event where there is a lot of lights and sounds and songs and people and um, less structure, then we may need to lower those demands. Maybe your child needs to step away for a few minutes and then try again. Or maybe they just need to go to one section and they're not going to make it to all the sections of the event that you anticipated. And that's okay. Um, and then allowing that stepping away, like I mentioned, offering those simple choices, like Crystal talked about, narrowing it for them so that it feels achievable. A lot of dysregulation emotionally is about control and not having it, or feeling like you don't have it. And then finding a place where they can go to quiet their mind and body so they feel ready to re-engage. And then after, if something needs to be addressed or debriefed, sometimes you can use a approach called collaborative problem solving, or CPS. Different kind of CPS than some of the ones we know about. So a team approach is what collaborative problem solving is based on. And it's a research-based approach where we are providing empathy for the situation that happened, uh, communicating our concern or our want as the parent, and then inviting our child to dialogue with us to troubleshoot what can we do differently. And this is something to do once they are calm and in a different setting. So it's not after, they just started to stop crying and we're going to put them back in the line with Santa, but we're going to try to do this collaborative problem solving in-depth debrief first. That's probably not going to go well. That probably will re-escalate them. So we want to save it for a time. Maybe it's a day or two later, and you're like, yeah, I noticed crowds feel really overwhelming. Tell me more about that. What happened when we saw Santa? I noticed that and they might be playing Legos or doing something else where they're distracted by play but able to answer your questions. Talking about what can we do to make it easier next time, and then review that plan before you go. Because if you create a new plan and don't review it, especially right before you're going into a situation that's they're going to need the plan, they are not going to remember. And so they're going to need reminders and support and practice along the way. So some examples might be if your child shuts down and they don't want to do a face-to-face handshake or say hi to a relative using their language. Maybe you agree that they can wave or do a fist bump or thumbs up instead. Or maybe there is a signal for, like Crystal said, for leaving an activity or transitioning. And those are agreed upon and practiced beforehand. Okay. And then front loading the plan is really important in reframing expectations. That goes along with being able to provide visual schedules, predictions for breaks, noise, reframe expectations, um, and provide connection, not perfection. So there are different strategies that you can use. There are a reset bag that sometimes can be helpful where you have like headphones, fidget, snack, things like that. A coping plan where you are developing a plan ahead of time. What are the strategies? Timers can be very helpful. Offering a break every 30 to 60 minutes or whatever the time frame is. Oops, my apologies. And then having a safe word for that communication also can really help so that you have an agreed upon way to share what you want to do when the child is escalated or what your plan is with them, whether that's a signal or whatever you guys agreed upon. So small support can be big regulation. So these little things add up, and then we can put them together to make a regulated experience. So we want to always put forth that connection over compliance. So what that may look like is getting your child's attention through empathy, hugs, offering them support so that they feel connected, and then you can request certain activities or responses from them. All right. Okay, so this is my contact information, and similar to what Crystal shared, there's the website, email, Facebook, Instagram. There is our list of services that we provide, and we offer free 30-minute consultations, so you can always go on our website and sign up for one.
Meredith, there's also a question in the chat about some examples of reset rituals. Would you mind sharing some of those?
Yeah, no problem. So some examples of reset rituals can sometimes be dependent on your child's coping skills or what they prefer for calming down. So a reset ritual might be something where they may need some kind of sensory input. So I know for my son, he needs like deep pressure and squeezes. So a reset ritual for him is either pushing his hands together or pushing his hands on mine. Or another reset ritual sometimes for him is shoulder squeezes. Um, a reset ritual could be a positive affirmation or a reminder of positive self-talk, and acknowledging like, I can do this, I have the skills, I can ask for help. And so sometimes those quick, different things can help us reset our brains so that we're ready to re-engage, or maybe we're ready to do a task, but at a lower demand level. Were there any other questions? I know we've forgot to pause before Crystal, or before I jumped in after Crystal. I apologize. Okay,
I think we're good.
awesome.
All right. Hello, everyone. Again, I'm Lindsay. I'm a pediatric occupational therapist and feeding specialist. I know Crystal and Meredith just touched on some of the sensory challenges and overwhelm that can increase during the holidays. And I wanted to start by kind of helping you understand a little bit more about the sensory systems and why the holidays can feel so hard for kids. So, sensory processing is how the brain takes in information. Everything we see, hear, taste, touch, smell, even how our body is moving and how we're feeling internally. We are constantly processing the sensory input during everything we do day to day. Um, During the holidays, the sensory input obviously becomes bigger, it can become louder, and it definitely becomes more unpredictable. We see more bright lights. Our kids are having to go in new environments. There's often loud gatherings with lots of new people. We're traveling. For some kids, it might be their first time on an airplane or in a long car ride. We're seeing changes in their daily routine. So they're out of school school, oftentimes out of their norm. There's often strong smells, different clothing textures that they're having to interpret on their body. And when a child's sensory system is getting too much input or becoming overwhelmed, this is when we often see those meltdowns or the withdrawal. We're seeing those really big emotions. Um, we're seeing more picky eating during the holidays, more fatigue sometimes. And sometimes these meltdowns or these big emotions can seem untriggered to us. There's not really like a predictable trigger that we're seeing as parents. And this can be due to the sensory system. Sometimes their cup is just too full, and that extra sensory input coming in can just make their whole world overflow. So their nervous system is really just trying to protect them. Next slide, please. So once we understand why they're overwhelming, the next step is really understanding how our child's nervous system responds. And there's two common sensory profiles. That's sensory seeking and sensory avoiding. So our sensory seeking kids often need more input to feel regulated, to feel calm and organized. So these kiddos might be constantly moving, jumping, they may be crashing into things or furniture, climbing a lot. These are kids who have trouble sitting still, fidgeting. They might constantly be touching things or touching people. You might notice them like chewing on toys or chewing on their clothing. They're really seeking more input, that sensory input to feel regulated. On the other side of things, we have our sensory avoiding kids who often become more overwhelmed very easily. So these kids might be pulling away from hugs or light touch. These are the kids who avoid getting dirty, that messy play, might avoid holiday crafts. They might have a stronger reaction to clothing, so they're bothered by tags or seams on their clothing. These are the kids who don't like brushing their hair or brushing their teeth oftentimes. In crowded places, they tend to withdraw, or in noisy places, they cover their ears. These are the kids who don't seek movement. They often have a bigger fear of movement, so they avoid like playgrounds, swings, slides, and these are oftentimes our very picky eaters who avoid certain textures as well. Next slide, please. So for any kiddo with sensory differences, one very helpful thing we can do is create a simple holiday sensory plan. So this is essentially just a roadmap that helps your child feel safe before, during the events, and after the events. I'm kind of just reiterating what both Crystal and Meredith said with some of these strategies, but we really do want to have that predictability. So, previewing plans ahead of time, letting your child know what's happening, where you're going, how long you're going to be there, what to expect. You can even practice going places when they're calmer. So, like going to the mall before all of like the Santa and all of the other um, festive things are in the mall when it's calmer and there's fewer people. You can practice going for a few minutes. You can practice spending time at a family's house before the big party. Um, Visuals also really help create that predictability. They also help reduce a child's anxiety because they can see what's coming next. What can I expect? So just having like a visual calendar that has the daily activities over the holidays, especially during winter break, even like a daily schedule when they're out of school to kind of help them see what's coming next in their routine. You can review the day's events like prior to leaving the house just to prepare them for what to expect. You can even review like pictures, go through pictures from last year's holiday events and just remind them like this is what we might see, this is what we might smell, this is how many people are going to be there, and just talking about and creating that predictability will help. As Meredith mentioned, just letting go of some of those expectations we have. Our child might not sit at the dinner table for the whole meal. They might not wear the perfect Christmas outfit or holiday outfit. We might not be able to stay at the party for the entire time, and that's okay. We just have to adjust some of our expectations as parents. Packing a sensory support kit is wonderful. I know Meredith touched on it, but every child's different. Their sensory preferences are different. But if we can create and have them help us create a little sensory kit that we can take with us with small items like different fidget tools like Theraputty or Play-Doh, a stress ball, anything they can squeeze or pull or stretch, that is the sensory system is it's calming to the nervous system, regulating. Um, Things like a little weighted lap pad or a little weighted shoulder rest or a blanket, chewy tools, different crunchy snacks or chewy snacks are very regulating to the sensory systems. If we can have involve the child in creating this little support kit, and we can take it on the go, we can take it to the grocery store, we can take it to our families' homes, and they will always have it with them. So when they're feeling a bit overwhelmed, they can use the tools that can kind of help them regulate. And then planning breaks and our exit options. So whether we're at our own home or we're traveling for the holidays at friends or families' homes, we want to be able to identify with our child a place where they can reset. We can create a little calming, cozy space in our own home or in a family member's home where they know that they can go when they are feeling overwhelmed. So they can take their sensory tools into this little space. It's kind of fun to create like a maybe like a little fort kind of with blankets and pillows and throw some sensory tools, like maybe a weighted blanket, some stuffies, things that help calm your child into this designated area. And you can make it fun by making it like their special fort for the holidays. Um, you can also kind of decide ahead of time what leaving early looks like. So when you're amidst the overwhelm and possible meltdowns, you don't want to be making that decision in the middle of that. So kind of decide ahead of time, what are some of the signs that, or even set a time to know when you need to leave the party. Um, the main goal with a sensory plan is really just to support your child's regulation so that you can increase their participation in all of the activities, all of the holiday events. All right, so here are some regulation tools that you can kind of take anywhere. They're kind of on the go, different ideas that you can use to help regulate that nervous system. So, proprioceptive input. The proprioceptive system is we have little receptors on our muscles and joints. It's the kind of input kids get when they push or pull or squeeze or carry things or hang. Any resistance to those muscles and joints, that's activating that proprioceptive system. So think things like deep pressure and heavy work, very grounding and calming for most kids. I know Meredith had mentioned her son does the hand pushes together or with her. That is an example of this proprioceptive calming input. So things like big bear hugs, you can teach your child to give themselves a big hug, or you can give them a big hug, squeezing their hands together, squeezing, like I said, like Theraputty or Play-Doh or even a stress ball. Carrying like a weighted backpack. You could throw some toys in a backpack and have them carry the bag around. That's activating that system. Jumping activates it. Animal walks. You can do, I love doing like animal walk transitions. So, especially before mealtime, going to transition using animal walks to the dinner table. So you can do like crab walks or frog jumps or elephant stomps. All of those are activating that calming system. Movement breaks are another great way to just kind of regulate that nervous system. So anything like you can play music, you can dance, you can do different games with stomping. Something called cross crawls, where you're kind of marching and touching your elbow to the opposite knee. That's crossing your body's midline. It's very regulating and organizing. Um, Simple things like just taking a walk outside, just getting that movement, stretching, swinging your arms, sometimes spinning. Kids love to spin. Just spin 5 times to the right, spin 5 times to the left, to the left. Just kind of reset that nervous system with movement. Another strategy are the calming oral motor strategies. So crunchy snacks and chewy snacks are regulating. Um, the jaw has receptors, the proprioceptor receptors as well. So the chewy or the crunchy is going to help calm. If your child's old enough, they can chew gum. Any sucking or blowing through a straw, even just their water bottle, taking some sips through a straw can help reset and calm the nervous system. There's some fun like blowing games you could play. You could take little pom-poms and a straw and blow them across the table or even the floor. Um, and then there's even like the chew necklaces or other different oral motor tools that kind of give that calming, chewing oral motor input. Um, and then the last one here is just setting up a quiet space. Um, so like I mentioned, the fort, like under a table, definitely giving them some sensory tools, their blankets, a breathing ball or a breathing visual. You could even use like the visual for their sort of reset ritual. So you could use a visual kind of schedule. So step one is sit in my fort. Step two is hug my pillow. Step three is take 3 deep breaths. And step four is like swaying side to side, something like that. Um, just making sure that they have uh, like a calming place to go that's designated for when they're feeling this overwhelm. And then just some other tools I had been thinking of, like soft textures are generally calming, the slow breathing. If you've ever seen those like breathing balls that expand, you breathe in and then they go smaller, you breathe out. Dimming the lights is calming, playing calm music. Um, with clothing, just like letting them be comfy, loose clothing if that's what they prefer, or sometimes like compression garments or like the Under Armour kind of gives them a little hug. They could wear that under another outfit. Um, all tools that are just kind of helpful in those overstimulating environments, and you can kind of use them anywhere. So, like on the go, you can do some different deep pressure work. Are you able to go back one, Meredith? Thank you.
Sorry, I had a little lag
No,
internet.
no worries.
We
No.
are almost at 1 o'clock. So is the webinar going to let us keep going for a few minutes so we can have Jen do her part?
Yes, on our end, yeah.
Okay.
Last thing I wanted to mention was just holiday meal support, especially for picky eaters. Um, Obviously, the holidays bring new foods, new smells, certain expectations around eating. They're often parties are centered around food. Um, and for our neurodivergent kids, picky eaters, sensitive feeders, this is very overwhelming. So just a few pressure-free strategies you can offer is bringing their safe foods with you so you can have them help you pack their lunchbox and bring it with you to the party and they can eat their safe foods. Um, Using or managing picky eating through like low pressure approaches, avoiding like just try it or just take a bite or grandma made it especially for you. That pressure actually shuts down the appetite and increases anxiety. So it doesn't actually help them eat it. Um, you can also just kind of practice like this is where you'll sit, this is what foods will be there, these are what the expectations are. You can even offer like we have to sit at the table, you don't have to eat it. Just offering like the low pressure strategies. You can do some sensory based feeding exposure by letting them touch the food or smell the food or use a big spoon to serve it on their plate. You can even practice before the holiday meal where you're just exploring foods, playing with foods, no pressure way, just exposing them to different new foods. Um, can help them progress into actually accepting more foods down the line. Um, and then you can offer different verbal scripts for family comments. So if family members say something such as, "Is that all you're eating?" You can return with something like, "We're we're we're teaching him how to trust his body and listen to his body to let him know it's full." Just having like a simple verbal script in the back of your head for different family comments that you know may be coming. Um, yeah, I think that's it. And here's my info. Um, as OTs, we do help children with the sensory processing piece, understanding their bodies, their feelings, regulating their nervous system, as well as the feeding, picky eating. We do also offer free consultations, and here's my contact info if you would like to get hold of me.
Thank you, Lindsay. I know we're at time, but we want to make sure Jen gets to share her piece. So if you can stay on for a few, we're going to keep recording to make sure that we get all the info. I'm going to turn it over to her.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today, and we really appreciate you spending a little bit of time with us. My name is Jennifer Hunter. I own and operate the Learning Project. My educational background is as an actual school teacher from at the high school level, teaching biology and anatomy and physiology for 10 years, and then moving into administration and really working with kids across all different types of areas in order to help them be successful. My last role was a principal at the elementary school level, and so coming to you from that perspective and wanting to look at some of the academics and routines in order to help that transition into holiday break and out of holiday break, help your students be successful with the least amount of disruption. And so we want to take those little moments to help develop big confidence in ensuring that there's smooth transitions into and out of a holiday break. And so there is a little bit of academics that we want to continue over the break, because if we remove all expectations for academics during these extended times, it tends to cause dysregulation when they have to go back into the routines and expectations are being set upon them when they transfer back into the school system. And so we want to help them be successful as they transition back. We can do some fun holiday learning activities that feel like play, that creates some special memories for you, but also helps you to have consistent learning across that break time. We'll talk a little bit about creating some of those holiday routines and what that schedule could look like. Meredith and Lindsay talked about, pre-planning and utilizing your children's own expectations to kind of help them know what's coming during the holiday break. That's a regulation tool that can help them see some predictability. And then some of the benefits that happen for maintaining those academics and routines over the break. Do you want to go ahead and switch the slide? Thank you. So, gentle learning routines matter because they help create learning confidence without pressure over the breaks. A lot of the times we're pushing our kids, especially at the end of the semester. For younger kiddos, it's maybe assessments ending the holiday break right before the holiday break, or it could be that they're having a ton of activities that are not academically pushing them at the holiday break. And so when they go back home and it's more like, oh, we're letting everything go, there's dysregulation that happens there. At the high school level and up in with our older kiddos, they are studying for finals. They have a lot of pressure put on them to get assignments in, to get grades in. And so we don't want them to lose confidence and then have that letdown at the end. And so we want to maintain some of that little bit of pressure. That learning doesn't completely go away during the break, but find a way to incorporate it in activities that they really like and that are created based off of what their learning strengths are. And so we want to support reading, language, and memory during the break. Reading could be at their level or even below, and incorporating some fun reading activities helps to build that connection with our kids as well. This helps kids to return to school feeling steady instead of starting from zero. If they're a struggling reader or they are having difficulty with reading, just having little pieces of reading over the break doesn't let them lose all of their skills, but it helps to keep their skills consistent. So when they go back, they feel confident. Using affirming language when our kids are struggling with some academics or if they're struggling with their regulation, that they can do hard things, but we can break it down one step at a time. Any of these moments where we're learning how to regulate ourselves through sensory activities, if it's emotional activities that we're trying to regulate, if it's academics, everyone is learning through this process and it's not failing. And a lot of kids will say, I hate this. I hate school. I hate feeling like this. I hate these activities. And so reaffirming them that it's okay to have those feelings. You're not failing. We're learning how to manage ourselves in these new situations. Having us practice together and having it be a joint collaborative response. And then not necessarily saying no, but using the words, let's try again, or let's try again if we're having not nice hands, maybe with our cousins that are playing out in the backyard. Let's try again and let's refocus and build that confidence through reaffirming language. And then just keeping in mind that our kids don't pause emotionally or academically during the break. This is an opportunity to continue their growth and continue the things that they've been learning throughout the school year, no matter what level of learning is taking place. So there's some learning activities that feel like play that we can look at during the holiday season. Reading holiday books together is a great way to incorporate reading that isn't high level of anxiety for kids. There's some great read alouds that you can find on YouTube, how to catch a gingerbread man, Frosty the Snowman, those classics are available, but there's also some really fun new books that are available through Read Aloud. So the kid doesn't necessarily have to be tracking in order to read. They can be participating in reading and you can ask them questions throughout the Read Aloud in order to keep them engaged. Writing letters to Santa and thank you notes for kids who don't like the sensory input of writing or who struggle with writing, incentivizing them to write a letter to Santa is a great way to incorporate some sort of academic activities into the break without it feeling like school. And then practicing thank you letters. We want our kids to also understand that, we're the gratitude, and that's an essential component of helping them manage their feelings too, is how they interact with others. And then this one's really fun. It's creating a holiday comic strip with your own family's highlights. So you can utilize tools like AI to create the pictures, or if you have a super creative kid that likes to do the drawings, you can help them write the script of some funny things that have happened, and creating that holiday comic strip helps with reading, helps with writing, and it enhances their creativity. When we look at math sometimes is a challenge for kids across the spectrum. And especially when it comes to things like fractions, it's a challenging subject area, and it starts in third grade now with our academic expectations. And so when we bake during the holiday season, using things like equivalent fractions so they can measure actually 2/4 of a cup fills half of a cup in the measuring in a measuring cup while they're baking, and that can help to create those connections between real world math. Counting simple things like ornaments, counting the number of lights that they see. If you're going Christmas lights, observing, counting the number of blow up decorations to help enhance their math predictability, comparing sizes and shapes. And then if you have kids that are at the upper grade levels, looking at budgeting. How much money are we going to spend on gifts for other people? How much money do we have available to buy groceries? What is in our budget? And having those conversations with our kids, because they're all at different levels. And so knowing who your kiddos are, but being able to incorporate these real world math skills as we go through the holiday season. And then when we are looking to continue to develop language and critical thinking skills, when we go and do some of these activities, Meredith talked about I Spy, also asking them, what do you notice and what do you wonder about new situations and new places that they've been? Playing Would You Rather. Maybe would you rather eat a gingerbread cookie or a sugar cookie? Would you rather build a snowman or would you rather play reindeer games? Finding ways to incorporate fun activities that keep their language developing over the break. And then single word story is where you sit with your family and each person can only say a single story. And maybe you give them the topic of, the holidays. And so my first word would be frosty. And then the next person's word would be and then the next person's word would be snowman. But we can get really creative in how we develop those stories. And it's a low academic expectation and a low speech expectation. So all kids can participate, even if they only have single word utterances. And then I have a science background. I'm always looking for ways to incorporate fun science activities into learning. And so building a fort and having them test stability, that could also be their safe space during the holidays. And so it's kind of a dual activity. Freezing objects in ice and making predictions about how fast they'll melt, building snowflake sun catchers, or even building obstacle courses that have some of those sensory tools built into it. So they're doing push-ups on the wall or they're doing frog jumps in order to help with regulation, but it's an activity that all kids can participate in at the holiday gathering that helps them regulate. So
Just
one of the things, oh, go ahead, Meredith.
gonna say, just to make sure we kind of keep within time, I would maybe try to go through the next couple and end by 1:15 if we can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah. So one of the things that is helpful about school is it provides structure to our kids. And so they have a predictable routine that's happening every day. And when we go on holiday breaks, a lot of the time that routine goes off. And so creating a schedule that fits your actual life and your expectations, that's realistic for your kids, that's predictable over the break, is a great way to keep that continuity. And so here are some strategies for creating that schedule. And then additionally, if you want to go ahead and skip to the next slide, this is just planning for school when school returns, really thinking about getting back to bedtimes, getting back to morning routines 2 to 3 days prior to going back to school to help aid in that transition as best as possible, and creating a plan for first week back to school that has incentives created to help your child transition in a positive way that will really build their school connection, and you won't lose all of the progress that you've made at the beginning of the year as you transition back starting at the new year. And then we do have some resources available. This is just kind of an overview of how these routines help make January easier and create that holiday harmony. But we are offering some resources available on the next slide. We have a calendar that has some holiday activities with some links that can take you to some of those read alouds that I spoke about. And the snowflake suncatcher activity, it's an Amazon link. It's very inexpensive. So that will be available to you guys, as well as a daily schedule that is flexible that you can use. So each day your kiddo can create the schedule that you guys are going to have for the next day in order to help build those routines. And so they can see what those activities will look like ahead of time.
And then again, I'm Jennifer Hunter from the Learning Project. I help with school confidence coaching and helping parents to understand their kids and their learning styles, identify their strengths, some advocacy and support. And then I offer homeschool science and after school science clubs around the Temecula Valley and Marietta. And so I'm just dropping my contact information in the chat, and then I will drop the resource links as well for the slide deck and the resource guide with all of the links that were available during our session today.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you guys for your contributions, Lindsay, Crystal, as well. And we thank you guys for your time. I know we went a little bit over, but we appreciate you staying on and listening to our strategies. And please feel free to contact us. Thank you so much. Have a great one.